So for this next video, we're going to travel back in time to the 1800s and learn about an industry that brought most of the people to Topsham during that time. And that was mining of this mineral. You might remember from before, this mineral is called feldspar. It's that creamy rock that makes the angled edges when it breaks. And for about 100 years, this is what Topsham was known for. And they needed this rock, believe it or not. They used this mineral to make sinks and bathtubs and dishes. Now this does not look like a bathtub. How did they get from this mineral to a bathtub? Well, it was a long process, and it started right here at the Cathance Nature Preserve. They would make quarries, and you can see from the picture beside me, the quarries would have something called a derrick, and this derrick was like a big crane. They'd blast a hole in the earth and find chunks of this feldspar, and they'd want feldspar that was pure. It didn't have anything else in it. And they would use this derrick to lift those feldspar chunks up and put them onto horses' carriages. And the horses then would carry them either into downtown Topsham by Elm Street, or they would carry them down to Head of Tide Park, which you might have visited, which is a little further downriver from the Cathance Nature Preserve in Topsham. And at those two locations, there were things called mills, and these mills were run by the river, causing a wheel to turn, and that wheel would then turn these big rocks, and those rocks would grind and grind and grind and grind and grind and grind, and eventually would turn this mineral from that square block into a powder. And this powder is very, very fine. It almost feels like flour. And then they would mix this powder with other materials, and that was how they would make their bathtubs and their plates.
So what's really neat is you can actually see some pieces of these old mills from 200 years ago are still around today. So if you go to Head of Tide Park, that's in Topsham on the Cathance River, and the Brunswick-Topsham Land Trust and the town of Topsham and CREA all work together to make this park. So you can go there and see the old parts of the mill. You can see those big, round, flat stones. Those are the round stones Carrie was talking about that the mill would use to grind feldspar into smaller pieces. And then see that big, gigantic rock tumbler, rusty metal thing at the left? What they would do is take the small pieces of feldspar, put it in there, and tumble it even more until it turned into a fine, fine powder. And all of these machines, all of this grinding, all this tumbling was powered by the river. So see this really powerful river? The water rushing over that waterfall is what turned the water wheel. And then that water wheel turned the big rock tumblers and the grinders and did all the work, turning the feldspar rocks into that fine, fine powder. And so if you visit that same place today, you won't see the mill anymore. That building is gone. But you can still see the powerful waterfall and see where the mill used to be.
So those two mills in Topsham produced about 80 tons of feldspar powder a day. Enough of this powder to equal the weight of 8 elephants. That's a lot of feldspar powder. And it was so much that it actually produced 1/8 of the country's feldspar production. So people all over the country had to get their feldspar right from Topsham. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to head outside and see if we can find the remains of one of these quarries right here on the Cathance Nature Preserve. While we're out there, we're going to look and see if we can find both any remains of any feldspar and see if we can find anything left from these big cranes they use to take the feldspar out of the quarries. See if we can find anything that might hold that crane up. So let's head outside right now and see what we can find. So here we are outside on the preserve, and if you look behind me, you can see that the land goes up. That's a good clue that the rock underneath us is changing. And so as we go up this hill, we can picture in our head the horses galloping up the hill with their wagons behind them, ready to pull some of that feldspar out of the quarry. So we're going to head up the hill now and see what we can find. So you remember that crane we saw inside that would pick the feldspar up? In order for that crane to stay upright, it needs some cables, which are thick wires that are all twisted together to hold it upright so it doesn't fall into the quarry. And you can see here the remains of one of those cables. It comes right through here, all the way back here, all the way around here. And even you might be able to see it way over on that other trail. So this cable is left over from hundreds of years ago when there was an active quarry right here. And if you look behind me, you might be able to get a hint as to where that quarry was. So now we're going to have you come on over and look over the edge of this abandoned quarry. So you can see this is now an abandoned quarry. It used to be flat forest all the way across. And then a couple hundred years ago, they blasted this big hole, they took out all the feldspar, and then they left. And so now nature's slowly reclaiming it. You can see there's water filling in the spot where the feldspar used to be. There's some salamander eggs in there, and other things are starting to take over what used to be a quarry. But if we look around, we can still see some remains of the feldspar. No big pure chunks, because those were all taken away and ground into that special powder. But if you look, you can see here, there's some feldspar mixed in quartz. And here's some of that feldspar and quartz mixed together. Now we know that just the pure chunks are gone, and we got to see some of the evidence about what took it away. We saw the cable that would hold up the derrick, and we saw the big pit where they blasted out to take the feldspar out. After they do that blasting, there's something left called mine tailings, and those are little tiny pieces. And now we're going to go back inside and have a chance to look at some of those mine tailings of your own. So now that we've learned a little bit about Topsham's mining history in the 1800s, we're going to do a little searching for gems of our own. We have a little bag for each of you of mine tailings. Mine tailings are what's left over after someone blasts the mine to get out the big jewels. Then they have some left over in little tiny pieces. And we get buckets of them from someone who has a mine in this area. Along with your bag, you want to make sure that you have this card, because this card has all of the minerals we're looking for. So we're going to look for some mica, which is the big flaky one that's shiny and shimmery. We're going to look for beryl, that is kind of a blue-green color. We're going to look for quartz, which is almost see-through. And we're going to look for feldspar, which is that creamy color that you can't see through. The other one we're going to look for is tourmaline, which is green. And I only have little pieces of tourmaline. I don't have a big piece to show you today. So we'll see that once we get into our bags. So first thing you're going to do is open up your bag and shake just a little bit on your paper. That makes it easier to look through. And then shift your paper around a little bit. And that makes it all spread out so you can see all of those beautiful minerals. And then take a look. I see a little piece of blue. So that's going to go on my beryl square. And I'm going to look around a little more. Oh, here's a couple pieces of green. And that green is tourmaline. So we'll put the green on the tourmaline side. This one kind of lets the light through. So that's going to be quartz. Here's another piece of quartz that lets the light through. Here's a sparkly, shiny piece of mica. And then here's one of those creamy colored pieces. This is feldspar. You'll notice on your card too, there's a blank sheet. So you can just put an interesting rock you find or a mineral that you know. Sometimes people have found amethyst in these, so they put their purple amethyst there and label it. So anything you find that you think is interesting can go on that last card. So now you might think, oh, I'm all done, I found them all. What you want to do, if you still have some minerals left in your bag, you can shake those down, swirl it around again, and look some more, and you'll probably find even more.
So have fun sorting through your rocks and minerals, and good luck finding all the different kinds.